Welcome to Real Estate and Murder, a podcast about real estate and murder.
I am Amy Brockbank.
And I am Sarah Brager. We are both licensed real estate agents in the state of Utah who have a common fascination with true crime.
We are here to tell you stories of murder amongst the real estate community. It might be an agent, it might be a client, it might be an undetected serial killer.
When it comes to real estate crimes, some are predators and some are prey.
We just want to issue a trigger warning. The content of these cases can be difficult to hear from time to time, and please listen with care.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Real Estate and Murder, a podcast about real estate and murder. This is Amy Jennifer. I am Sarah Brager, and we are both licensed real estate agents in the state of Utah who have a common fascination with true crime.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
So it's time to introduce our case, Amy.
I'm excited.
Why don't you tell our listeners what we are covering today?
Yeah, for sure. So we are covering the life and death of the celebrity realtor, Linda Stein, out of New York.
This one was fascinating.
Yeah.
I just want to give one more disclaimer that's unique to this case. All right?
Yeah.
I do want to say, just at the top of our story, we do not know this victim, Linda, personally. We do not know what she was like. We don't know how she lived her life day to day, besides the stories that we've been reading, the articles that we've been reading, and the content we've been listening to. So on this podcast, we're talking about realtors who are either the victims or the perpetrators of murders, right?
Yeah.
Or crimes, like all in general. And so this case fits perfectly into that category because tragically, she lost her life, and she was a very well-known and successful realtor. So we're going to do our best to relay the information that we've been given, that we have to work with. And we understand that Linda is not here or present, and so we're going to refer to her with respect. She was a boss woman, right? She was a business owner. She was beloved.
She was a force to be reckoned with.
She was a force. And we just want to make sure that we're clear, this murder is recent enough. There's family members, friends, and loved ones out there who, think of her dearly. And we are just sharing the story with, all the respect in the world to Linda's legacy that she's left behind.
Yeah, the story as we know it.
The story as we know it, exactly. So just wanted to share that right at the top. Amy, let's meet our legend realtor, Linda Stein.
Linda Stein was born April 24, 1945 in Bronx, New York, to Ira and Mabel Adler. Linda was raised in Riverdale and taught 5th grade in the Bronx. She was fixed up with Seymour Stein by the uncle of the uncle of one of her students. Seymour had an impressive resume in the music industry. Linda became a fixture at exclusive famous clubs around New York, places like CBGB, the Mud Club, and the infamous Studio 54. She married Seymour Stein in 1971. They lived in a 9-room apartment at the Kenilworth on Central Park. They had 2 children, Samantha, born in 1973, and Mandy, born in 1975. In 1975, she helped launch the Ramones after her friend Danny Fields gave her a call. Linda and Seymour would later divorce in 1979. Linda began to leverage her relationships with celebrities to launch her real estate career. She wasn't intimidated by their status and knew how to talk to them. In 1994, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. She had her first mastectomy and breast reconstruction. In 1996, she had her second mastectomy. She joined the board of Evelyn Lauder's Breast Cancer Research Foundation, and Elton John performed for the foundation in 2001 for Linda. And usually when someone goes through a life-altering experience, it isn't uncommon for them to be advocates for causes to help raise awareness and money for others going through the same experience. In 2006, Linda was diagnosed with a benign brain tumor. Her diagnosis did not require surgery, but she did need to start taking mood stabilizers and other drugs. This left her muscles weakened, that she couldn't lift simple things as light as a blow dryer. Her right arm had remained numb due to her many chemo treatments. She wasn't able to perform everyday tasks such as combing her hair and walking in Central Park by herself. That is Linda.
That is a descriptive but short bio of a very dynamic woman.
Yeah, and we're going to go into detail of her life because she lived such a colorful,
robust life.
Yeah.
So let's do that. Let's jump into the highlights of her story, shall we?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to talk a little bit about Linda's kind of success story. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. You covered like her birth and a little bit about her family dynamic. So I'm going to start with a little bit about her marriage to Seymour Stein.
Okay.
All right. He was the president of Warner Brothers at some point, right, in his career. And because of that, she was introduced to many celebrities, artists, like performers, of course, in I'm sure more than just like one genre, right?
I mean, when we say the president, though, you guys, like, he helped create and invent like Billboard Top 100. Like, he was very
very
in the
impactful.
who's who of the music industry.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a legend in and of himself.
Exactly.
So you have these two powerhouses that makes sense that they're drawn to each other.
Yeah.
Very dynamic personalities and very successful, driven people. So that makes sense. And it was well known. I mean, you mentioned in her bio that they did divorce and they weren't married very long, but it has been said by every source that we read or listened to that they remained friends and had a great relationship.
Yeah.
So because of this close proximity to the celebrity world, up and comers and movers and shakers, I have that in my notes. That sounds like
yeah,
the
no,
thing
that's
to say.
really great.
Warner Brothers was responsible for launching the careers of Madonna. Have you heard of her?
Yeah, I mean, and he had his own label too. Like, it was just crazy.
Right.
So yeah.
He also helped along the Pretenders.
Did you know the Madonna story? I know we're going to get sidetracked here for a second.
The Madonna story, like what?
How he met her?
I don't. Tell me. Wait. Hold on. I said before we started recording that I was bummed because I don't have a Surprise Amy segment for this case, which is my favorite part of the podcast where I surprise Amy with a fact she does not know. And I said, I wish maybe you had a Surprise Sarah segment. And you said, I don't. And here we are. We are taking a trip down the Madonna lane.
Okay, I don't have it all written out. So if I'm wrong, like, I'm really sorry. But Seymour was actually in the hospital. I believe he was there getting treatment for a heart condition at the time. And Madonna shows up on his floor and comes into his room. Like, I'm sure that she had asked to like come in and just see him. This is true. Like, it was written in his like information.
So she wasn't famous yet.
She wasn't famous yet.
Okay, so she like dressed up as a nurse.
Nope. She
I'm just
came
kidding,
in,
Madonna.
She introduced herself to him, and he had her sing for him right there in his hospital. He was in his hospital bed.
No way.
This is so true. I mean, according to the internet, this is so true. So
Madonna, call us.
yeah. And he signed her right then and there.
No way.
This is a true story. So this man works deals in his hospital bed, but that's how they met.
That is so gangster of Madonna to be like, you know what? I'm going to get him when he's down.
Well,
he's holding still. He can't run away.
Her first 3 albums, I think her first one was like named Madonna. Her second one was like a virgin, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Her first 3 were under him.
Wow.
And then she went to a different label. But like, he like launched her career
From a hospital bed.
well, I mean, yeah, but that's how they met. Like, it's crazy.
The Surprise Sarah segment. Wow. All right.
Sorry, we digress.
No, that's a great add-in to the story. I love that. He was also responsible for, like I was mentioning, the Pretenders.
Yeah.
Got any stories about them, Amy?
All
right. Well, they sing one of my favorite songs of all times, but also the Talking Heads and very famously the Ramones. Ever heard of them?
Yes.
So let's talk about the Ramones for a minute, because Linda was involved pretty deeply in their like shooting off point to their career. So in 1975, Linda received a call from a friend who heard the Ramones play, and this friend begged her to grab Seymour, come down and listen to them right now.
Yeah.
Right? She comes down to the club, she hears them, and she decides right in that moment, they are the future of rock. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And from what I read in one of the articles, again, it wasn't there for this part of it, but the Ramones were like struggling to get up and starting. They were just having a hard time becoming popularized, if you will. And so they decided to launch into the European market.
Yeah.
And from there, they flew. I mean, they became huge.
Yeah.
And
she had a lot of connections in Europe.
She did. I mean, Seymour was very connected, right?
Yeah.
And they were, like we've said, kind of like a power couple, if you will, a dynamic couple. So she ended up managing them from 1975 to 1979.
Yeah.
Which is
right after she gave birth to her daughter in 75.
Yeah, that's true. Didn't skip a beat. So the Ramones, again, they went on to world success, came out with famous music that we all know, including Blitzkrieg Bop, that song that goes, hey, ho, let's go, which Amy will now perform for us.
No, I won't be performing. That's a funny joke, though, for our audience.
But All right. Like you mentioned, Linda was a fixture at famous Manhattan nightclubs such as CBGB, Club Mud, and Studio 54. Amy, what do you know about Studio 54?
I mean, it was the club. There was a lot of scandalous activity that went on at Studio 54.
There was. I'm going to tell you just a tiny bit about it.
Okay.
Not much. I mean, Studio 54 could be its own podcast, I'm sure, right?
I mean, it has
a deep history.
Yeah. I was like, it's like a 10-part series or something. I'm sure it would
is.
be.
Like you said, it's one of the most famous nightclubs, probably of all time, really.
I think
well known, right?
Yeah. I think everybody tries to replicate the vibe that went on at Studio 54.
Sure. Which Linda fit right into, right? So amongst some of the club's famous patrons were Liza Minnelli, David Bowie, Robin Williams, Tina Turner, Elizabeth Taylor, Al Pacino, Dolly Parton.
I love it.
George Michael, Andy Warhol, Elton John.
I mean, Linda went on tour with Elton and was frequently seen like backstage, like cheering him on.
She was a good friend of Elton John.
Yeah.
Also, Michael Jackson.
Could you imagine like going in and seeing all these people in one room?
I cannot imagine what it would be like to walk into a room of just powerhouses.
Yeah.
And not have any idea who to start a conversation with first, because I'm not in your world. But I imagine it was very fun. And of course, the famous patron, Miss Linda Stein.
Yeah.
So this club was famous for its elite, comers and goers, right? But also for its scandal.
Yeah, I was going to say it was
scandalous. Studio 54 was in constant scandal. The club was raided for selling liquor without a license. I don't even know how you pull that one off.
I mean,
you're the most famous nightclub in New York, and I don't know.
Your liquor license was revoked.
Yep.
Who knows?
Tax evasion. Another famous one, of course.
Why not?
There have even been other murders that are tied to patrons and even staff members going way far back. So again, like we said, it could be its own podcast. But despite the club's scandalous nature, it was packed wall to wall with the who's who's, right? Of the music business.
Yeah, I don't think anybody cared.
Hollywood.
Like it was always embroiled in scandal. It was like the place to be.
It was the place
in New
to
York.
be. It had the biggest parties that have literally gone down in history. I wrote that down. There are literally parties that are still talked about to this day. And Miss Linda Stein fell right into that crowd with ease, right? She was known to be funny, outspoken. She was very adventurous. And I put the word experimental in here because that is the most appropriate word I could think of for her, like blasé, let's try the world attitude, right?
It doesn't sound like she was afraid of anything.
Not of anything or anyone.
Yeah.
She was well known for enjoying the party and kind of being the life of the party. People wanted to be around her. She was also known for a couple of things that I relate to deeply, which made me nervous for a minute when I was reading about her because it sounded like I was reading about me for a minute. And the only things that I'm talking about is she loved to wear red lipstick.
Okay.
My favorite. She was a little bit loud and outspoken. I'm not necessarily known for that, but I mean, if you've been around me for a minute or two, could be a little outspoken. She loved certain swear words. Again, maybe not me, but if you know me, she was just this boisterous, loud. She had a huge smile. She just attracted people that wanted to be around her, like the who's that in the room, right?
Yeah.
So as a part of all of these parts of her personality, she was actually referenced, according to a friend, author Stephen Gaines. Linda was reportedly the inspiration for 2 movie characters.
Yeah.
2.
One
of which was the real estate agent character who sells a high-rise apartment to Charlie Sheen in the movie Wall Street.
Yeah.
And she was the inspiration for the character that was a record executive in the 1998 movie 54.
Of course. I mean, that is a famous movie about
the famous nightclub.
Yeah.
Right. This was her social life. This was her world. She was around people of high status. And this is how she kind of took a turn in her life into the booming business of real estate in New York City. Right.
Yeah.
So, Amy.
I mean, you sell to who you know.
You do. And those that are around you, especially if you can cultivate relationships of trust with people that are your friends or your, coworkers or people that you're just in proximity to, right? Then you can use those parts of your personality to really build professional relationships, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's exclusive to just real estate, though.
Of course
I
not.
feel like any fields,
Entrepreneurs.
that's who you talk to first. Is,
Absolutely.
people that you know. She just happens to know
Some big names.
Yeah, with lots of money.
Amy, will you tell us a little bit about Linda's dive into the real estate career?
Sure. She received a finder's fee from Edward Lee Cave, a broker for the well-known Sotheby's brand, for bringing him to her husband's apartment. So they were getting a good divorce.
They had a stunning apartment.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. In the Kenilworth. I mean, we looked at pictures
and floor plans, and we were blown away.
Yeah. Gorgeous, gorgeous place.
So a finder's fee is when a property is introduced to an agent or broker that wants to sell the property, and they're kind of like rewarded, paid a referral fee, if you will, for the introduction.
Yeah. So, and then from there, she just took off. She was like, oh, you know what? I can end up doing this. And she was able to use her connections to build relationships with clients that included Andrew Lloyd Webber, which I didn't realize he used a real estate agent because he's so great at designing. Isn't he architecture?
Amy, do you know who Andrew Lloyd Webber is?
I clearly don't.
The famed composer of Broadway.
Who am I thinking of? Who is the architect?
We actually have him down on our list. I don't know if you knew that. So one of my favorite parts of planning this podcast has been writing out all of the subjects that we could potentially do, right? I have a really long spreadsheet, and he is on our list.
Crazy. What's his name?
I'm not going to tell you because you're going to be blown away when you read like even the headline that's attached to his story.
Well, wait. Okay. Andrew Lloyd Webber, who is a composer.
Very well known. Amy, so I mean, look, we did a Madonna dive. Let's just take an Andrew dive for just a second, because you're going to be like, really? Are you serious? So Andrew Lloyd Webber is known for The Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, yes. I love that.
Jesus Christ
Broadway.
Superstar, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, Cats, Evita. Like, he was an incredible composer who put together some of the most famous, well-known musicals that have ever existed, right? So, you still want to know about the architect, huh? Okay.
It's fine. We'll move on. We'll look at our break. Madonna, Sting, Billy Joel, and Christy Brinkley when they were together, Bruce Willis, Michael Douglas, Steven Spielberg, Angelina Jolie. During her career, and many others, really, the list, they're so... Well, it is the who's who of...
the culture of the time. Yeah. Undoubtedly, there are names that we don't know about because oftentimes, like, celebrities in status, like, they don't want to have their private business revealed necessarily.
Exactly.
So I bet that her client...
You know what, though? Linda was kind of known to talk after the fact. You know, she wanted to let people know, like, as she was networking, probably. Like,
she was in the public eye.
Yeah, I helped so-and-so. Anyway, during her career, she went on to work for Douglas Elliman.
Yep.
Where she remained for the rest of her career. She worked out a sweetheart deal to join Douglas, which exemplified her negotiating tactics. She was quoted by a friend to have said, quote, "If I have to show a home 42 times, I will show a home 42 times. When a client wants to see a property, I'm going to show them no matter how many times it takes." Close quote. She was known to do real estate deals all over New York, up to the Hamptons and back. So, I mean, really, we've all had those demanding clients that want to go back to the house. Like,
I don't know about 42 times,
but like, I got to go back and see if my kitchen table will fit here. And, I have the perfect piece of art. Like, let's go see if this wall, like, I want it to see if it looks good here.
How many outlets are in this room?
Mm-hmm.
We do get that a lot. And she, like, kind of the point she was making in this comment was, I'm at the behest of my clients, you know, and if they want something, I'm going to give it to them.
I mean, she was really great at customer service. Her clients, I mean, to have high-end luxury clients, they're a little bit, it's a different kind of demanding.
Well, they have a unique list of needs and requirements, right?
Yeah. And I think because they're celebrities and they're used to kind of being catered to, I'll use the word catered.
Sure.
She really knew how to talk to them, though, because she wasn't intimidated by their status.
Right.
And So she would cater to them, but she would also, I mean, there's so many stories of where she's telling a celebrity to
get it together.
Yeah. I mean, she's
Tighten
like,
up, straighten up.
the HOA is not going to like you. Like,
Yep.
so.
Which makes sense. Like in a competitive real estate market like New York City, which we all know it is, right?
Oh, high-end apartments.
Yes.
And, even the Hamptons, high-end.
Very high-end, exclusive.
Very.
I can imagine that you would want the outspoken, fight for you, advocate for you type of realtor, which again, we didn't know her personally, but from everything that we read, she was known to just be, this is how it is, this is what we're doing. And so it makes sense that she was a good advisor to people who needed that type of like representation and direction.
Well, and because she lived in New York and because she lived in a really expensive apartment, and I think she also walked their walk a little
absolutely.
bit without as much of their
like she didn't publish her own albums, but she was amongst them.
Yeah. But I mean, she still had paparazzi following her, and because paparazzi knew that she moved with high-end exclusive celebrity clients, so
sure.
I think she was under scrutiny just like her clients would be.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point, that when you have a certain amount of exposure, when you're working with high-end clients, luxury clients, famed clients, like that's kind of what we're referring to. She did have some exposure there, and she did end up being written about in many an article, right? She was featured in
Page 6.
Yeah, in the New York Post, which Page 6 is the famed like gossip column.
Yeah.
That's their words, not mine. But she was mentioned. She was well known.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, the celebrities that wanted sort of more anonymity, what am I trying to say?
It's okay, take your time.
I don't know what I'm trying to say.
To be anonymous?
Yeah, but there's like...
And this is one of those moments where you're like, you say blue in your head 20 times, then you're like, wait a second, what is it? Anonymity. Yeah. Anonymity. I'm just kidding. I have no idea anymore.
Anyway, there's ways to do that. They pay cash. They have, under an LLC or,
sure,
however way, and to try to keep
privacy
issues.
Yeah, so they have like shields up a little bit,
Yeah, I mean, after what's gone on with, celebrity stalkings and, all this stuff, like I'm sure some of them weren't too happy to have her tell,
like their personal business.
Well, or that they bought a place in New York.
Oh, sure. Like they were being geolocated because they were in reference to a famous realtor. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's been said in a couple different sources that she had kind of a personality that was like take it or leave it. You loved her or you didn't.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that applied to her business, right? Because there's not a one-fit-all personality for entrepreneurship.
It doesn't seem like she was easily offended.
I can see that. She was a New Yorker at birth, all the way through her life. She married a powerful man and became a powerhouse herself. I get the impression like she was kind of those like didn't take nonsense from nobody.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes
sense about her. And in a very competitive market like New York City, maybe that's what was needed to be accomplished in transactions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because in real estate, we can all have clientele. That doesn't mean that we're closing deals.
Yeah.
So if you are actually closing transactions, selling and buying and representing clients, you are turning over a successful business. By turnover, I mean, you're closing a transaction, you're doing another one. That kind of thing.
Well, and it seems like all the places that she worked at were very, very thrilled with the closings that she had.
Right. Like the brokerages that she was with.
Yeah.
She did. She was able to even leverage and like kind of work out a sweetheart deal when she went over to work with Douglas Elliman. Right. She had a sweetheart commission deal.
Yeah.
She
just was always negotiating something to get better terms and conditions.
Exactly. She had status. She was recognized. And later on, she was given an assistant.
Yeah. The company paid for her.
Right. Yeah. So she was, by all accounts, a powerful impact on the local real estate market. Right.
Yeah.
Because New York City, Manhattan, I mean, the island's a mile long, couple miles long, but she was well known.
Yeah.
Can't really reiterate that enough. She was well known. So, all right. Well, Amy, I want to talk just for a minute then. Linda's a great example of this, but I want to talk about women in business for just a minute.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're both women in business. we're in the same field as Linda because we're doing a podcast about real estate and murder. But we're kind of talking about, and we're alluding to what we know, and by know I mean read and watched commentary and content about Linda and her personality, how dynamic she was. And when I say dynamic, look at the sources and read them. But again, she was a take it or leave it personality. She was loved or not, kind of one of those people, which those can be very successful people. But is it, and this is a question I'm going to pitch you.
Yeah. I think I know where you're going with this.
Okay. All right. When women are successful at this level, they've been recognized, popularized, however you want to word it. Is there like an element of our society that just automatically labels that successful, dynamic woman as a difficult person?
Absolutely.
Right? Like, I mean, I'm not going to use like foul language in this podcast or to describe her, but you know what I'm getting at, right?
No, I do. And I know that's because a powerful man that works his way to the top, even if he has to step on a few toes to get there, he's rewarded in the public eye and how much he's overcome. If a woman does that, somehow she's betrayed her womanly, like, I don't know what word I'm trying to use, but the sensitive side that women are supposed to be a certain way, and that all of a sudden they're like demonized.
Right.
Like, it's almost like The Devil Wears Prada with Miranda Priestley. It's the character in that movie.
Right.
And she built this big magazine in this movie, but she's also, I mean, Miranda's a nightmare in the movie, but
she's known to be difficult.
Yeah, but she had to be to get to the top.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating subject, which, isn't necessarily the point or direction of this episode overall. But what I'm getting at is to be as well known as she was and to be highly criticized, for better or worse, in the public eye. Is that because by nature, and this, Linda lost her life in 2007, right? So we're not talking about 2024. And I think that we can agree that there was a different or slightly different, largely different, whatever you want, like how you personally feel about it, different sort of idea around kind of like traditional gender roles, not in a home life, but even in a professional life, right?
Well, I think even now, though, people love to tear down the successful woman.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying we've progressed to the point we need to be at, but I'm saying this is long enough ago that the problem of what we're discussing was even bigger, was even greater,
for sure.
Right?
Like a woman was managing the Ramones in 1975.
One of the biggest, most famous rock bands. I mean, really.
Yeah, no, true.
Of all times, and was rubbing elbows with celebrities that even back in the 80s, 90s, they were the hot celebrity of the time. I know every name. Yeah. I know them. You know what I mean? I recognized every single name that she worked with, that she rubbed elbows with. And so as women in business, yes, we're in real estate as well. So we're entrepreneurs. Let's just say that, because like you said, you don't have to be a real estate agent or in this field to have this experience. But as entrepreneurs in general, what's the line that we walk in terms of being respected for your talent, your drive, and using your personality traits to your benefit to grow your business versus like being sort of pegged as just that one personality?
Well, and maybe that's why she just grew such a tough skin, as far as just like, I don't care. I don't care what you say. This is how I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to run my business. This is who I'm going to represent. This is how I'm going to represent them. This is, who I'm going to manage or not manage or whatever, I mean, I think,
That's a great point. Yeah, that a part of maybe her personality being known for
her brashness.
Yeah. Or a thick skin, like you said, is kind of like in part survival mode, right?
Yeah.
Like you're jumping into some rough waters in the music world, in the celebrity realm, and even in real estate. Look, I'm not saying they're the same thing necessarily, but in real estate, you have to have a thick skin, Amy.
Oh, you can't take anything personal.
You can't take anything personal. You have to, and when I say have to, I mean, for me personally, I feel like I will do the best long-term in my career if I am continuing to manage my emotions, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to stay in control of the situation by staying in control of your reactions, responses, and feelings. And sometimes things can get tense. not necessarily between you and your client. That's not what I'm saying. But you are, as a real estate agent, representing one side or the other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just think about it, because there's an underbelly to celebrity. There's an underbelly to musicians and touring. And, we've all read the headlines and watched the documentaries and all of that stuff. There's also like an underbelly to real estate. There can be.
Well, here we are podcasting about it.
Yeah. So I think that, she knew how to navigate the underbellies of all the fields that she worked in.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I mean, I wanted to bring it up because I think it's relevant to what we do in our careers, but to her story as well, and to, other women in business, that this is a topic I think that we struggle with, we juggle, we try to overcome, or we've resolved ourselves to a solution and just continue to run with it in our careers, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think she was a target too, in her real estate career, because real estate can be pretty cutthroat. New York City in particular, she's getting a lot of the clients that other agents want because of her past relationships with them. And,
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the list, the disclosed list of celebrities that she worked with, it's very reminiscent of like the LA Hollywood scene, right? It's like, it's at that level. It's New York City.
Yeah.
It's Hollywood. It's the same, oftentimes like same celebrity, same kind of
overlap.
Yeah, overlap. And like you said, like we know and see all kinds of stories and documentaries and about the underbelly of that world, and it applied in her life.
I mean, for celebrities that decide to buy here in Utah, they're usually trying to escape. They want to leave the spotlight scene or whatever, and they're not trying to be all flashy and whatever. There's a number of celebrities that live here in Utah.
That's very true.
And they come to get away and be quiet and not have the Hollywood type scene.
Sure.
And so I think clientele here is just very different than clientele in.
Yeah, there's a different motivation.
Yeah, and just a different like cutthroatness to it.
Sure. I mean, that's a great point. There are a lot of celebrities, or maybe not even like as famous, but equal in like careers or strengths or what they do, that, people that come here and buy getaway homes, vacation homes, right? We have beautiful scenery here in Utah, gorgeous mountains. We do have water, believe it or not. I mean,
we are a desert though too.
Quite a bit of Utah is red rock desert and
we
sand.
don't have oceanfront property.
No, unless you are in one of those homes. I have showed a home where you're in the basement.
In the ocean?
I'm getting at it. In the basement, whomever owned the home had like painted a mural in the window wells of water.
Oh, stop it now.
So you were like underwater, and then in the kitchen, in like the window, you know how a lot of kitchens have a window like above the sink?
Yeah.
It was a really big, long, elongated window, and they had painted a beach scenery.
Stop it now.
So I know of one home in Utah that is oceanfront.
Oh, I've only seen the panels on the walls that you can switch from like outside. Like it looks like you're in the forest to the water or whatever, but actual paint, that's wild.
Which Utah has 4 proper seasons. We have summer, spring, fall, and winter, but whomever lived in this house was like, I'm adding a 5th season, and it is year round.
Yeah, I just want beachfront.
But that's an excellent point. We have a beautiful backdrop here for people to come have some silence, peace, solitude, right? That was a good point. All right. Well, women in business, here we are. So, Amy, let's go back to October 30th, 2007.
Okay.
It's a dark fall night in New York City, the night before Halloween.
Yeah.
And a panicked, terrified caller dials 911 and says, I need an ambulance. My mom is dead, I think. And right there, we're going to end at part 1, because part 2, we are going to get into the story of the death of Linda Stein.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll talk to you in a minute.